President Donald Trump is reshaping the U.S. government from the inside out, and even the Federal Reserve is a target.
Jerome, too late?
Echo, too late, pal.
I think he's terrible.
Some very strong words coming from the president.
Termination cannot come fast enough.
People can say whatever they want, that's fine.
This is something different, and I worry about it.
The threats to Fed independence that we're seeing right now are real and they're significant.
They're under a white-hot political spotlight right now.
Overall pressure campaign.
The president and I are both concerned about the foundations of the Fed.
With the unprecedented attempt to dismiss a sitting governor,
Lisa Cook sues Trump over move to oust her,
and an economic ally poised to fill another vacancy.
If I'm confirmed to this role, I will act independently.
An institution traditionally sheltered from politics is having to navigate unfamiliar waters.
Names can change, but I think the ultimate point is you're really targeting the independence of the central bank.
Everybody agrees that central bank independence is critical.
Central bank independence, we have to fight for it.
Fed independence is the crucial underpinning of the Fed's credibility as an inflation fighter. If Fed independence is lost, that credibility is shattered.
We're never going to be influenced by any political pressure.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there.
One of the biggest challenges is dealing with uncertainty. A central bank wants to avoid contributing to that uncertainty.
To truly appreciate the gravity of where the U.S. is today, here's a quick history lesson. Back in the 1970s, President Richard Nixon pressured the Fed chair Arthur Burns into cutting interest rates to boost his re-election prospects.
I respect his independence. However, I hope that independently he will conclude that my views are the ones that should be followed.
Burns obliged, but what followed was years of crippling inflation. Burns' successor, Paul Volcker, responded by raising rates dramatically. Although this caused a lot of pain, the inflation dragon was tamed, and it set the economy back on track for growth. Volcker's resolve in the face of political pressure also reestablished the notion that a central bank removed from politics was necessary and beneficial. This autonomy has held ever since.
We will continue to maintain a strong and independent Federal Reserve.
At least until now.
We have a stupid person, frankly, at the Fed. Always too late, a little slow. Yeah, he's not a smart guy.
Judging how aggressive Trump has been can be subjective, but Bloomberg Economics developed a way of keeping track.
What we wanted to do was take it out of the realm of mere impression, my assertion versus somebody else's assertion. We wanted to give it a quantitative grounding.
Headlines were scored for their positive or negative sentiment on Fed independence. Social media posts, if associated with those headlines, were counted as well.
We added those up across months in order to derive a visual impression. Through the first couple of years, President Trump was relatively restrained. When Trump took office for the second time, the intensity picked up right away and has by far set new records. Admittedly, that scoring is inherently somewhat judgmental. Somebody else could perhaps arrive at a somewhat different conclusion quantitatively. But the existence of these headlines is undeniable.
Somebody that I've never been very fond of, actually.
The irony here is it was President Trump, after all, who nominated Jay Powell to be chair of the Federal Reserve.
Jay has the wisdom and leadership to guide our economy.
Trump, back in 2018 and 2019, was kicking off a trade war with China, and his firm conviction was that the Fed needed to play its part. Fast forward to where we are today.
Interest rates have to come down.
We're in an even bigger trade war. Once again, President Trump thinks the Fed needs to get on board with Team USA and deliver outsized rate cuts to juice the economy and give them a better shot of winning in this trade war. All politicians, if they're in power already, would very much like to be in a low interest rate economy with growth booming.
Growth can boom with low interest rates because they inspire businesses to hire and investors to invest. Usually, high interest rates do the opposite. When it's more expensive to borrow, businesses can contract. Managing this delicate balance is why central banks exist, and why their independence to make nonpartisan decisions has been so vigorously defended.
The Fed's mandate is surprisingly clear. Congress has instructed the Fed to pursue maximum employment and price stability. It doesn't mean that a central bank that has solid independence is a rogue organization, utterly unaccountable to elective representatives. But there is this buffer away from the political fray. It is about short-sightedness versus long-sightedness. Monetary policy here historically in the United States and in other countries around the globe has been shown time and again to work better when decision makers are allowed to make decisions in the long-term interests of the population.
This dynamic can be clearly seen in Turkey's economic roller coaster.
President Erdogan's motions towards including a lot more politics into monetary policy started back in 2018. He vowed to take a more active role in policymaking and made it very apparent that his preference lies with lower borrowing costs. That culminated into the first removal of the governor back in 2019. That has led to a series of departures from the central bank. We are now on the 6th central bank governor in just over 6 years in Turkey. That policy has led Turkish economy down a quite difficult path, trying to tackle rein-in price pressures by lowering borrowing costs produced the opposite result to what the president was expecting. Inflation exploded to a high of 85%.
This had profound effects on the Turkish population.
Items that we consider necessities, such as food, shelter, housing, utilities, and healthcare, these tend to be quite fast at adapting to high price pressure. It makes it more expensive to be poor, and it divides the wedge between the haves and the have-nots even wider. Fast forward to 2023, after the elections, the president actually did a complete overhaul with the policymakers completely doing a U-turn on those unsound policies.
As the central bank aggressively increased borrowing costs, lo and behold, inflation volatility slowed and has gradually come under control.
But to this day, we still have extremely high inflation. Let's take it with a grain of salt comparing the US economy with a smaller economy like Turkey, but the mechanics are still there.
Turkey's revolving door of central bank governors is a cautionary tale. But US presidents have historically observed legal guardrails to remove Fed decision makers. Trump's attempt to oust Governor Lisa Cook breaks that convention.
Congress in 1935 wrote in a requirement that the president can dismiss members of the Board of Governors for cause. There has to be some serious form of misbehavior.
Our independence is a matter of law.
Just how far President Trump can take his arguments remains to be seen.
The Supreme Court, in ruling on the president's ability to fire the heads of other independent agencies, explicitly created a carve-out for the Fed, suggesting that the legal bar for the president to oust Jerome Powell is fairly high.
But the US Supreme Court, with many of its justices appointed by Trump himself, has often ruled in his favor. Added to this, the firing of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics rang alarm bells around the integrity of data that inform economic decisions.
There's a tradition to adhere strictly to nonpartisan, professional, objective standards in creating the data. Many of us will be on high alert to be extremely observant about any possibility of manipulation of the data for political purposes.
The stakes here couldn't be higher. Markets risk losing faith that monetary policy decisions will be made apolitically, no matter who works at the Fed.
This is what we call credibility, and that's the thing that is very hard-earned and quite easily spent.
The president, whoever they choose, you're going to have somebody that has credibility with the markets, or you're going to see inflation expectations spike. You will not get lower interest rates. You will get higher interest rates.
Trump could be shooting himself in the foot. A Fed that floods the US economy with cheap money will have to pay more to convince the market to hold US debt. Treasury yields, especially anything past 2 years, will go up. And it's these interest rates that matter most to the economy.
You should stop fixating on what this means for rate cuts. I think, what is this going to do for the longer end of the curve? I think that's what the market's got to start thinking about.
We haven't seen substantial reactions in markets yet, but this could turn very quickly. Frankly, I think we are playing with fire.
With the full effect of Trump's tariffs yet to be felt, the challenge to the Fed's credibility as an inflation fighter has come at a bad time.
The story of the rise of President Trump and the rise of his MAGA base has really been a story about attacks on elite institutions. Now Trump and his team, they're hammering at the Fed's door. There's going to be some pretty serious consequences for the US economy and for the US markets.